Appreciate y'all for tapping in. I was just trying to get something set up. Let's get this party started. Even know what that is. Shout out to everybody. We about to get it in. Give me a 1 if you can hear me loud and clear. Give me a 1. Give me a 1. Yeah, we're about to talk about 19 Keys. 19 Keys, the good brother Jabril, has went viral. And, I know a lot of people, they've criticized 19 Keys. But I think that he's been doing some great work. Just especially coming out against the fecal brain assimilationists. I think that's been really positive. So, I think that's something that we should celebrate. Shout out to Lord of Slaughter. Yeah, let's wait for people to come in before we get in. What do y'all think of that? I don't know if y'all been paying attention to the African Cup of Nations. I thought that was pretty crazy how they overturned the results of the championship. But I don't think it'll last. It kind of sucks though because it ruined the integrity of football on the continent. So unfortunately, but we still rocking. Yeah. Hey, how to cut the other one. Yeah. We about to get in. This is gonna be really interesting. Yeah, no, that was super corrupt, Trigger. It honestly it's it really kind of confirmed a lot of suspicions that we were having. The Cameroon game was really crazy. It's tough for me to watch that. It's really difficult for me because you have a player in Kofani, he gets a red card or a yellow card for getting elbowed in the face. You have Mbuemo about to score, he gets tripped up in front of the goal. No, VAR, no virtual assistant at all. And, Morocco just gets to take that game and, they eventually make it to the final. And, if every single nation is allowed to reverse calls on the pitch after the fact, a lot of history gets reversed. So I don't see the decision standing. I don't think the overarching body is going to allow that to stand because it sets a dangerous precedent for other countries. But it just shows that it was always hypocritical the whole time, and it's just difficult. It's really difficult to ever support the tournament again. I think the only thing that will make a difference is if they cleaned house. But ultimately, FIFA, Infantino, he's really close to Trump, and it's really just this corrupt, I honestly, I hope that there's a massive revolt this World Cup in the U.S., especially because of the Iran war. I hope there's a massive revolt. I hope they lose a lot of money. I hope teams don't show up, because that's the only thing that will get this to change. Because, the CAF, corruption, that's nasty work. That was nasty. That's just that's gross. But Trump, doing the Iran war after he was given the FIFA Peace Prize, and a lot of countries saying they don't want to play in the United States, rightly so. I think hopefully that leads to a cascading effect. And hopefully, the African nations band together. I don't think to me, Eto should have stood firmly You know, because even after he kind of tap danced, you know, after the Morocco-Cameroonian match, he got fined and he still got punished. So it just goes to show you that it's just pure corruption. You know, the Senegalese players were proven correct when they walked off the pitch. You know, they were proven fact, and nobody's going to take away the memory. I hope they don't give back the trophy. You know, let, you know, the CAF create a replica the same way they gave the winner of the Club World Cup a replica after Trump stole that cup. You know, and yeah, a lot of the countries are stooges. So yeah, personally, I don't actually expect Eto to do anything. I really don't expect him to do anything. But I'll say that, you know, if nothing changes, I'm not supporting the tournament ever again, because it's lost all of its legitimacy at this point. It's not legitimate. You know, so. And then I was hoping that North Africa really should not be in the tournament, ultimately. Especially if they don't identify, like if they identify as Arab, you know, they should not be in the tournament. You know, they absolutely should not. So, I mean, this could lead to a realignment, like if countries support, you know, Senegal, whichever country, you know, it doesn't even matter if they're like a major country or not. They should just leave and say, hey, well, let's do our own friendly tournament with Senegal and with Mali, with Cameroon, you know, the AES states. You know, let's have our own separate tournament. And who cares about, you know, CAF? Who cares about the African Federation and Motsepe? But, you know, I've seen, ultimately, from the fans at least, I've seen more unity among the fans. You know, I haven't really looked at the statements by the federations of each country, but, like, I think that each African nation should condemn. Because every single nation in Africa has a gripe, has something that went wrong that they want, you know, ameliorated. Especially after the fact, especially after the game. But if you allow that to happen, like, that's just like, it's just a disaster. It ultimately is a disaster. So, I mean, obviously there's corruption, there's moneyed interest behind the scenes. Who knows what type of development is going on in Morocco and what type of deals have been made behind closed doors. But, I mean, I wish they would have sold it better. Like, ultimately, if they just find Senegal, I don't know, if they find Senegal $1 million US, that would kind of be shitty, but at least it would still give them the title. The fact that they stripped them of the title, I just think they shot themselves in the foot. But anyway, I mean, that's enough about the situation over there. I just saw a lot of people talking about that on Twitter. Some people call X. So we're going to get into this video. We're just going to get into it. I know Mr. K has been wanting me to talk about this for quite some time, so let's just get into it. And this is going to be from Haven Bullets channel. Shout out to Haven Bullets. This is going to be some fair usage. Fair usage. I'm going to play. We're going to play it a few times. But 19 keys. Actually, I'm going to play Professor James Smalls first. I'm going to play what he had to say. I'm going to actually run it back from the very beginning.
James Small. And I'm just responding to some people.
Let me know if you could hear it.
Seem to get fun out of a video I did about 10 years ago. It's an hour long plus, but someone took 2 minutes of it where I'm being critical of my family, brothers and sisters, mainly brothers, from the continent of Africa who was recent arrival in a conflict with the merchants from here and the continent on 125th Street. And so they decide they don't want to watch the entire tape where I'm critical of African American, critical of Africa from the Caribbean, critical of people of color who come to America and decide that their best ally are white people rather than African people. And that conflict had to do with trying to get brothers from the different spaces to go to a meeting at the National Black Theater to try to form a merchant group that could stand up against the police coming and taking the materials, the clothing and tapes of the young African-American brothers who didn't have a merchant license. Well, most people out there didn't have it, but the police tend to pick on the young teenagers who was out there trying to make a living. And I was trying to bring some peace by criticizing everybody. Now, my criticism might have been a little harsh, but I was criticizing myself as well. But I want to make it clear to people in the world, I'm an African. When I say identify myself racially, I'm an African. African American is an ethnic identity that has to do with where I live. America is a geopolitical place. It's not a race. Africa is my race. Africa is my genesis. Africa is my culture. And I want to make it clear, I am not ADOS. Do not support them or their concept. I'm not FBA. Do not support them or their concept or their attack against African peoples or the attack against pan-Africanism, which shows a lot of ignorance and misunderstanding. I'm an African. And if someone wants to clip that little 2 minutes to try to create a critical negative, let those same person look at the other 100 plus videos that I have on the YouTube. And there's a couple of thousand more videos if you want to really go looking, and you will find they're 100% pro-African, pro-freedom, pro-identity, pro-pan-Africanism. So don't get me confused with yourself, because you're cowards and you're afraid to identify as Africans because you don't want the responsibility to fight for freedom. I'm not a coward. I'm 80 years old, and I've spent 60 plus of those 80 years in a day-to-day constant freedom fight on the part of my people. So cowards, if you want to be critical of our race, if you want to be, and anyone have a right to criticize ourselves and our race, we have a right to do that and try to be appropriate. And so I say to brothers and sisters, if my tone was inappropriate, I apologize to myself and to you for that. But people are not going to use me to support their backwards, ignorance point of views as regard African peoples and Pan-Africanism. If you think that you're going to get me as an ally, you got the wrong black man. I am an African, born an African, will die an African. I am not FBA. I am not ADOS. And no matter how long you've been in the Americas or anywhere in the world, we came here from Africa. And anyone who wants to foolishly give up the identity of their grandmothers and grandfathers and their great-parents, I feel sad for you, because slavery and colonialism have impacted you in a greater way than we even think. And yet all of us have been impacted by it. But we need to be clear. Don't try to misuse me, Professor James Small. I do not support your backwards, ignorance, foolish point of view about the family and the race. We are one African people. We will die as one African people, or we will live eternally as one African people. And so I just want to make this clear, because I'm sick of watching it regurgitate. And many of them don't understand they have become willing collaborators with the CIA. They've become willing collaborators with the American State Department. They've become willing collaborators with the Zionists that want to disunite African people and want to cause confusion in our ranks. But we are one people. We are one African. Pan-Africanism, which means the unification of people around things African, is my mantra and my philosophy. I am not socialist. I am not a Marxist. I have never been those other people's things. I was born and raised in the Christian church, and then I dumped that at 17. I got involved in the Muslim movement, became the heir to Malcolm X, was the imam of his Muslim Mosque, Inc., went to Mecca, became a Hajj, and then I realized this is not an African thing, and I cut it loose. And I've studied the history of Islam in West Africa. I'm very clear. We have our own sacred science traditions. We need to bring them back. We need to not apologize to anybody for being Africans. And if they want to stay in America and own America as their identity, I feel sorry for them. You're still my brothers and sisters. I understand that you have an issue and a problem, but stop attacking our race. Stop attacking our ancestors. Stop attacking the brothers and sisters that are recent to this country who are just trying to survive. That argument we had on 125th Street, I was overcritical. But if you watch the whole tape, I kicked African Americans in their butts too, trying to get some unity out there so they could form, and they did for a while, form a merchant coalition where they could hold their own against the police and the others on 125th Street. So if you're not out in the street with the people, you won't even have a clue what I'm talking about. But no, don't confuse me. I'm an African. I'm not caught up in your confusion about we were in America first. We were everywhere on the planet first before anybody. We were in China before the Asiatic type came into being. We were in Russia before the Mongolian type came into being. We were in Germany before the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths came out of the caves and the mountains. We were in Australia. We were in Cambodia. We were in Hawaii. We were in Central South America before any other people that can call themselves a race. So why are you so hung up on the fact that some of us may have stumbled up on North America before Columbus got here? Columbus just got here the other day. He's not significant or important to nothing. I do not measure or identify myself by any of the European genociders who people call colonizers, because this has been a war of genocide against us. We see that war still being extended today in Sudan. If you want to do something, let's see what we can do about ending the genocide in Sudan, or having the people who are causing it pay a price they don't want to pay. But that's my message. Let me be very clear. Don't confuse who I am. I'm not an ADOS. I'm not an FBA. I'm not someone who's confused with my identity. I am an African. And if you don't like that word, throw it out. I'm the original man. I'm the God man, which emanated out of the soil of Africa when it was first manifested by the cosmos itself. I'm a replica of the universe like you are. So you need to get your memory back. And the most authentic replica of the universe is in trouble in Sudan right now. The blackest of the black, the most melanated of the melanated, is in trouble. So let's fight for that. People who are caught up in this thing, they want reparations, and they don't want our brothers and sisters from this place to get any of the reparations of that place. The crime was committed not to the group of Africans brought to North America. That genocide was not committed just to those of us brought to the Caribbean. The genocide was committed to the entire African race. We were ripped from mothers, fathers, uncles, brothers, and sisters, and that pain and that cutting and that breaking and that destruction on them. If you want reparations, and go beg your white man boss for something, I think they should pay for any and everything they did to me and to my race. But I don't put myself above my race. No group is above the race. Race is second only to the divine of the universe itself. Nothing else is above the race. Even family comes after the race. So let's be clear. I'm an African. You are not going to confuse that. You're not going to confuse that. And if you think anyone else could confuse that, go listen to the thousands and thousands of lectures I put all over social media and other parts of the world for decades. So I just wanted to get that out and make it clear. Stop playing. If you're a coward and you don't want to fight for freedom, so you don't want to identify as an African, then go to the coward's place. We'll come back and get you later. But right now, we have to fight for our freedom. True freedom is to restore your identity. If you talk about freedom and you don't know what your identity is, you are not free. I don't care how much money or degrees or whatever you've got. I'm a free African being living in the universe. Don't confuse it. Peace and blessings. Hotep. I'm done with that.
Shout out to, James Smalls, Baba James Smalls. Shout out to everybody in the building. Shout out to Zuchetto. Great to see you here. Everybody subscribe to Zuchetto. He has a really good channel. Really great information on his channel. Shout out to Dan Salmon. He has a really good, profile on Twitter, now known as X. He does some good work, so give him a follow on Twitter as well. Shout out to everybody in the building. I think that was a really, really good statement by Professor James Smalls. And, I had different opinions about, James Small, especially since I saw a lot of the reactionaries using him to promote their xenophobia. But, James Small actually cleared things up. And, a lot of people, some of the people who looked at James Smalls coming out and coming clean have also said the same thing about Jabril or 19 Keys. Now, I know a lot of people in the audience are unfamiliar with, well, basically, let me say this. A lot of people in the audience do not trust 19 Keys just because of, some of his affiliations, especially within the conscious community, conscious space. People who like to talk about spirituality and, quantum woo and these different things, and a lot of individuals who may be more materialist or who may want to have a more concrete conversation about how to fix the black community, they wouldn't trust 19 Keys. Now, I actually know 19 Keys. Well, I know some of his family, here in the Bay Area. He's from Oakland. And just from the basic facts that I know about him, I know that he doesn't rock with FBA. For one, his manager is an Igbo, from Nigeria. Igbo descent, at least. His cousin, who I am personal friends with, is part Jamaican, right? And multiple people around him are from the continent, from the African continent. So he works closely with Africa, right? He works closely with people from the African continent. He does a lot of business with people in the African continent. So, like, if you've seen him move and who associates with him, you'll know that in his actual life, he does not rock with FBA, or he doesn't rock with the concept of hating black people from different countries, right? That's absolutely not what the type of timing that he's on. And he's a good dude. He genuinely cares about, the greater aspirations of black people. He is affiliated with the Nation of Islam. And because of that, a lot of people would not necessarily trust it. But even outside of that, he works with Christians. He works with people who are atheists. He works with people of different spiritual backgrounds. So just from the way that he moves and what I've seen of him personally, he's absolutely not I wouldn't consider him a grifter, so to speak. I wouldn't consider him an FBA hate monger. So, just from that, I'm going to get into this video, and this is going to be from Haven Bullets. Shout out to everybody in the building. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, like this video. It's going to help in the algorithm. We need to share the video. I want to do this. Shout out to Mr. K. Shout out to my members. Mr. K is the one who wanted me to talk about this as well as a myriad of other topics, so I wanted to get this done. And, once we get through this, we're going to just go into just some more generic, FBA talking points and see if we can refute them. So let's get into 19 Keys.
Degree of being wrong at the same time.
Let's go back.
You're right, and there's a degree of being wrong at the same time. Yeah. Right? So essentially, a lot of this is centered around foundational Black Americans. That is a lineage-based group who does act like an organization or a movement.
You make it a little bigger for everybody. We're about to play 19 Keys, and this has started basically a civil war in FBA. 19 Keys is part of Hidden Color 6. So he's one of the main, he's probably the most famous speaker in Hidden Color 6. And he's come out against FBA, right? So and here's the thing about it. A lot of people have associated James Small. James Small has a lot of business in Africa. James Small is actually invested in the hotel, resort, real estate industry in Western Africa. And some people have suggested that because he has business relationships in Africa, a lot of the hate speech from FBA was getting to his clients and business partners. And that's what moved him to come out and speak against FBA. And in the same vein, 19 Keys, or Jabril, has a lot of business partners on the African continent. He was actually in Uganda speaking with Museveni, and I think I did a live about it. Yeah, I did a live about it on my last live. He was speaking with Museveni about how to build deeper bonds in between, Black America and the African continent. So again, many people have suggested that 19 Keys actually came out because some of the people, on the continent were hearing the FBA stuff, and then they wanted to start blocking, or maybe they wanted to stop doing business with 19 Keys, because he has like coffee businesses in Africa. He sources a lot of his textiles from the African continent and Haiti, if I'm not mistaken. So he's doing a lot of business in Africa and throughout the diaspora for his hats, for his clothing line, and the different things he sells the people, different herbs, and the things that he promotes, right? So he's doing a lot of this stuff in Africa. And if Africans hear some of the things that FBA is saying and they associate it with him, he may lose out on some of those opportunities. So many people have suggested that both James Small and 19 Keys are doing this for economic reasons. Now, I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with that or have definitive proof of that. I'm just giving you the speculation. But in all, they have both came out and firmly rebuked FBA and firmly came out against FBA. So Dan Salmon says, I guarantee you Tariq will move to take him out of the documentary. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, Tariq took James Smalls out of the mural of the hidden history, slop shop, and he replaced him with a so-called tether, an Eritrean and Nipsey Hussle. So that speaks for itself. But let's get into this video.
You're right, and there's a degree of being wrong at the same time, right? So essentially, a lot of this is centered around foundational Black Americans. That is a lineage-based group who does act like an organization or a movement with a center head, which would be Tariq Nasheed. Now, he says that he is not the head of it. It's a lineage, right? And we are not a group, but he definitely acts like, the leader of the group, if you will. And then there is the way that they treat and talk about Africans. So it's very demeaning, right? They talk about delineation, right, which is a separation and saying that, look, we are Black Americans. We are not associated with other groups, and we don't want to be grouped and classed in as well. We are from America, right? We have our rights in America, and we're going to continue to make strides and progress here in this land, which is not a foreign concept, right? When there were schemes to push
I rock with some of the foundational Black American movement, but you gotta understand, and this is what you all are missing, because y'all act like y'all got a problem with Africans, and this is crazy. Because what you also gonna miss out is the opportunity to do business, right? It's a very simple, logical thing.
And again, like going back to that, like I said before, he has a lot of business in Africa. He does a lot of business with African people. So, he's not rocking with FBA because of the hate aspect of it.
All of the resources are in Africa. They're not in America. You can think about your ego can take you wherever you want to. Your ego is not the resource to build a nation. Your ego is not the resource that's going to change reality. No, you actually need resources and you need allies from all across.
And in the midst of Africa going through its biggest revolution, we're the...
Yeah, and let me make that big. He's going to start talking about just the, African. And this is the person, Water God. He's the FBA foot soldier that came out against him. That came out against 19 Keys.
The most disconnected from that storyline. So I believe it's a psyop, right? I believe that there's an aspect in identifiers.
He's saying FBA is a psyop. That's what he's just saying. He's saying FBA is a psyop.
Right? That is key. But then there's the aspect that the enemy is utilizing that against them.
Movement, that whole tether and all that, we need to get down to that.
And I talked to Tariq about that, actually.
Because a lot of these niggas is controlled opposition, and I'm starting to wonder about a lot of these niggas. So come holler at us, Tariq.
So that's from Haven Bullets channel. You can just go ahead and subscribe to Haven Bullets, you know. But again, like, this is an example. This is an example of both, you know, 19 Keys and James Smalls going after, you know, FBA and Tariq and saying, hey, Tariq, are you going to call out this hate speech? Are you going to go after this hate speech? And a lot of people like Tariq, like, they'll say, oh, Africans call us Akada. Even though Akada isn't even a generalized term in Nigeria, it's not even a generalized term among the Yoruba. If you go to Nigeria and you're a Black American, the biggest insult that they'll use for Black Americans is Oyimbo, which means white and foreigner. They don't. I was just in Nigeria a few weeks ago, actually a couple months ago, and they don't use Akada like that. They don't. Like, when somebody got mad at me, right, they called me an Oyimbo or a foreigner. They don't use Akada. So, like, a lot of these dudes make up, based upon Sugar Hill, you know, they make up different narratives and scenarios in their mind that don't match reality at all. They just don't match reality. So this is an example of that. And a lot of people, wait, can y'all hear me? I don't know if y'all can hear me right now. Give me a one if you can hear me. MJB is saying no sound. But shout out to 19 Keys for that. Yeah, Water God voted for sure. Yeah, Water God is a weirdo. Shout out to Medjai Commander. Wait, Zuchetto is saying no sound. I'm actually not trying to play the I'm not trying to play the video right now. I'm actually just like vibing. I'm not trying to play the video, but Zuchetto saying he can't hear me. Shoot, I might just play the music real quick. See if y'all can hear it. Oh, you said you can hear me? Alright. Alright, yeah, so like, for sure. Yeah, so, you know, it just speaks to the intellectual bankruptcy of FBA. Like, 19 Keys is literally the biggest name in Hidden Color 6. Yeah, there's some people saying they hear me, other people saying they can't. For sure. 19 Keys literally is the biggest name in Hidden Color 6. I'm gonna try to bring it up. Low key. I'm gonna bring it up.
Websites your competitors don't want you to know. Part 2. All you do is go to this website, and it lets you find out exactly.
And first off, before I continue, give me some love. Hit me on the Cash App or the Super Chat. Give me some love a little bit before we continue. Because if you do, then we're gonna go into some of the FBA stuff that Mr. K wanted me to talk about. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to y'all. This isn't a click-through link. This ain't a click-through link. Damn. Shout out to everybody in the building. We're about to get this started. Let me just play that a little bit. Hey.
Two serpents twine on the ivory rod. The south and north governed by God, but the God was the people, the land. The first state built by the black hand, owned by Norman district by clan. Federation was always a plan. My ass had the busy years here. Justice without tribal fear. When the master took the pilgrimage road, he carried Cayman's governing load. The council stool, the elders here. The palace courtyard, the open air. Not conquest, but covenant seal. The African state on the river revealed. For the colonizer drew the line. Him and drew the blueprint divine. We do not beg for sovereignty's nine. We invented the state under African God.
Shout out to Tim Boyles for that 5.
5 politics.
Shout out to you.
Two serpents twined on an ivory rod. The south and north governed by God, but the God was the people of the land. The first state built by the black hand, known by Norman district by clan. The federation was always the plan.
There's a link for the Cash App if you want to show some love. Y'all listen to my intros right now.
Courtyard, the open air, not conquest, but covenant sealed. The African state on the river revealed. Before the colonizer drew the line, Kim drew the blueprint divine. We do not beg for sovereignty's nine. We invented the state under African God. Let's go.
Make some grow a little bit. Give me one more, don't have to be big. Then we can get into it.
The storm curves like the womb of the sky. The same sea where the Ashanti kings lie. The headdress cradles the spirit's flight. Same wood, same grain, same ancestral night. Left the claws on the throne's arm. Symbols warding off spiritual harm. Low is blooming in the palace pool. Copied in the courts of Ife's rule.
Heated waste, fence blue. Every color holds a value. The smoke that killed the woven loom. We've gathered in the room. Not imitation, but memories are. The pattern travels not the card. Pick up the 80s, pull the thread tie. Classical Africa close in the night.
It's still, so, baby, it's still,
This is gonna be funny when we really get into this. We gonna really dissect it.
Check it. The stool curves like the womb of the sky. The same sheep with the Ashanti kings lie. The headdress cradles the spirit's flight. Same wood, same grain, same ancestral night. Leprechauns on the throne's arm. Symbols warding off spiritual harm. Lotus blooming in the palace pool.
All right, let me play this. Shout out to all the supporters. Let's play this. Let's run this through. Let's play this. Where we at?
You know, erasing history is something that you have to do when it comes to conquest, domination, and destroying a people. If people knew who they were, and what they were capable of in the past, they will understand what they have a possibility or a likelihood of doing in the future.
The Foundation of Black Americans, we've always had a culture of resistance. We cultivated a culture of resistance on this land, and we've been resisting ever since we've encountered European domination.
But nothing was really popping in Europe until the transatlantic slave trade, and that's where they amassed a lot of wealth.
One thing that I think is unique about our culture as far as how we resist,
right off the bat, if you consider the beefs that you have with these different people, this documentary was probably made like 3 years ago. Long before these beefs.
We fight back is just the environment we were put in from day one. Being only 13% of the population, the white supremacists were very meticulous about keeping that population at a certain amount.
There was never a period when we did not resist the encroachment of the white man.
They have a natural behavior of authority no matter where they go. That's why they'll step up in front of us in the line at the store. We're not important, they don't even see us.
We've never been able to excel. We've never been able to relax. We've never been able to just be, which means that existence is resistance.
It must be something in our DNA, our historical background, to when something doesn't sit right with us, especially spiritually, in our souls and in our spirit, we just say no.
We live resistance. You know, from the moment we're born, we're in resistance. And it's handed down generation to generation.
And so I think that cultural resistance is actually in our DNA, in our epigenetics, and then it blossoms out into the culture.
So there's almost nothing in America that we do, from song to dance to politics to the way we talk, the way we dress, having coded languages considered to be slang today. Everything about Black American culture is a form of resistance.
Fair use. Fair use.
Of course, they want to always downplay our contributions to the global tapestry because they continue to act like our #1 export in this country is not Black innovation.
Everyone understands that our resistance has been the cornerstone of what foundational Black Americans have always done. We are the life that breathes everything into this nation.
The further back you go, the further Black you go. It's just simple like that, brother.
Off the bat, tell me, give me in the chat, how much money do you think it took to make this documentary? Because best believe it's already made, and I know they're trying to crowdfund for it, but how much money do you think it took to make it? Put it in the chat. If you think it's, shoot, just let me know what you think. How much money it take? Yeah. Hey, it's Chase McGee. Chase McGee. I think you were the author that Trill mentioned in his last video. You said 10,000. He said $10. 30K. 30K is a lot. 30K is a lot. I'm saying each one of these speakers, max, it probably took them like a stack to get them a film, like $1,000. It probably took like $1,000. The speakers, getting the speakers and recording them probably was the most money. But editing wise, I wouldn't put it over 5,000. Editing wise, I mean 10K probably seemed more like it, but like it doesn't cost. He's trying to raise $250,000. Bakaluba said 10,000. Yeah, 10,000. 30K what the elders charge. Yeah, it's definitely not $250,000. With AI, CapCut, Premiere Pro, all the different tools, like as a content creator, the documentary is no more than editing alone is no more than 5K, possibly less. All these are probably AI generated stills. You can generate all of these images from Sora. You just need a Sora subscription or Midjourney. So we know, you already know that FBA is getting scammed. We already know that. FBA getting big time. Now I'm gonna run it back. I'm gonna play it again. And y'all tell me, who do you think is the most notable person in the documentary, in the trailer? Who do you think is the most notable name?
You know, erasing history is something that you have to do when it comes to conquest, domination, and destroying a people. If people knew who they were, what they were, and what they were capable of in the past, they will understand what they have a possibility or a likelihood of doing in the future.
Foundational Black Americans, we've always had a culture of resistance. We cultivated a culture of resistance on this land, and we've been resisting ever since we've encountered European domination.
But nothing was really popping in Europe until the transatlantic slave trade, and that's where they amassed a lot of wealth.
One thing that I think is unique about our culture as far as how we resist, how we fight back, is just the environment we were put in from day one. Being only 13% of the population, the white supremacists were very meticulous about keeping that population at a certain amount.
There was never a period when we did not resist the encroachment of the white man.
This is crazy.
They have a natural behavior of authority no matter where they go. That's why they'll step up in front of us in the line at the store. We're not important. They don't even see us.
We've never been able to excel. We've never been able to relax. We've never been able to just be, which means that existence is resistance.
It must be something in our DNA, our historical background,
That's
to
all
when
AI,
something
bro.
doesn't
Every
sit
single
right
thing.
with us, especially spiritually, in our souls and in our spirit, we just say no.
We live in resistance. You know, from the moment we're born, we're in resistance. And it's handed down generation to generation.
And so I think that cultural resistance is actually in our DNA, in our epigenetics, and then it blossoms out into the culture.
So there's almost nothing in America that we do, from song to
The dollar will of this, maybe I'm thinking 5%, maybe 10% they actually purchased, but 90% plus of this content is AI. As a creator, I can see it myself. 90+% is AI.
dance to politics to the way we talk, the way we dress, having coded languages considered to be slang today. Everything about Black American culture is a form of resistance.
Of course, they want to always downplay our contributions to the global tapestry because they continue to act like our #1 export in this country is not.
Look, anytime somebody says tapestry is AI, that's the rule. Anytime somebody says tapestry is AI.
Not Black innovation.
Everyone understands that our resistance has been the cornerstone of what foundational Black Americans have always done. We are the life that breathes everything into this nation.
The further back you go, the further black you go. It's just simple like that, brother.
Well, go ahead and rate the trailer. Rate the trailer that you just saw out of 10. What would y'all give it out of 10? What would y'all give it out of 10? I mean, if the speakers raise their fee, I mean, but how much you think Tariq? You think Tariq is gonna give one of these dudes $5K to show up and interview? I don't know if y'all noticed, but what he's doing is that he said 5. Shit, that's generous. I think that's pretty generous. Solomon gave it a 7. He said 3. Tim Boyle said 3. Yeah, 250. Honestly, nah, 250 is kind of cheap because you got to think about they probably flew out themselves. He said 6 because of the Queen. He talking about Shahrazad Ali, I think. Yeah, you got to pay them. The speakers are the content. Yeah, I mean, but I'm thinking honestly, I'm thinking like, if he gave each speaker $1,000, it was probably like 8 speakers. That's like $8K, and then put another 1,000. Like, to me, honestly, I say maximum like 11, 12,000. I don't see this thing going any more than that. But regardless of what it is, I mean, Tariq stands to make a lot of money. If it's $250,000, he stands to make a lot of money. Yeah, for sure. I feel you, Dollar Will. I feel you. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look into some of my resources with regards to what Mr. K sent me, some of the content that he wanted me to react to. Mr. K out of the UK. Be sure y'all like and subscribe. I got some love on the Cash App. Shout out to you. Shout out to you, brother. Shout out to brother Amani. Shout out to you. Shout out to you, brother Medjai. Shout out to you for the support. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. We're gonna get into some of this FBA stuff. We're gonna get into this FBA stuff. I hope I said the name right. But we finna get into this FBA. Yeah, I kind of screwed that up. I have a lot. You know, for those of y'all who are part of my Discord server, you know. And I'm happy that, you know, Discord hasn't changed the settings of the app, because it's actually been really useful. It's gonna be, let me see if I can get it. It's a lot of stuff here. All right, let me look into. There was a hearing, I guess. There was a hearing that Mr. K wanted me to look into, so I'm gonna look into this and see what's up. See what we can get from it. If it's some good stuff.
My name is Divine Prince.
This is Divine Prince, an individual who goes by Divine Prince. Yeah, AI can definitely make good films. So it's like a lot of the things in the past. You know, I'm not familiar with seed dance. I don't know what seed dance is. What is seed dance? I'm not hip to that. Let me know what seed dance is. He juxtaposed Professor James Smalls with these FBAs. Divine Prince. Let's see what Divine Prince has to say.
I'm the president of the U.S. Freedom Project, and I'm a Brooklyn boy. And I heard a Brooklyn songwriter say, every day I wake up, somebody got a problem with Hove. Who knew that somebody would be the entire New York Reparations Community Commission? Ain't no love in the heart of the city and in the heart of this commission. Imagine voting to punish the most committed members of the community to this process. Voting to Jim Crow us to the back of the proverbial bus, the back of the speaker's line, when you're supposed to be honoring our ancestors who were Jim Crow survivors. I'm disappointed the vote passed unanimously. See, we expect these underhanded tactics from Dr. Daniels and Daniel Favors Esquire. They're here to fight against the Black American community in favor of their pan-African American community. They advocate for our ethnocide. Dr. Ron is on record at a Fulton County reparations hearing saying that today's Afro-immigrant is tomorrow's African-American. And Commissioner Lurie is on record saying that Black Americans need to fight for immigration because we can and could be deported like the Jamaican side of her family. You know what we don't hear, though? Anyone citing all the studies and reports dealing how immigration as a whole, including Afro-immigrants, negatively affect Black Americans and help to usher in gentrification.
I would love to see that.
Based on the racial of African descent language of this bill, that's a conflict of interest.
I would love
Frederick
to see
Douglass,
that.
A. Philip Randolph, Barbara Jordan, and Coretta Scott King all advocated for the protection of Black Americans from the negative effects of immigration. Today is the Statue of Liberty's birthday. She was gifted to the USA to honor Black Americans that forced this country to recognize our emancipation. In 1987, Reagan and right-wing white supremacy takes our day and makes it National Immigrant Day. It helps to propagate the narrative that America was built by immigrants, thus erasing our connection to Lady Liberty. Now we're dealing with the same erasure from left-wing white supremacy. So we're stuck on the ABCs because this commission is built on a faulty foundation, and you refuse to change it even though the legislation allows it. And we were told by the authors of both bills that you would change it once you saw fit. So I sound the same because the truth don't change. Race-based reparations are morally, legally, and historically unjust. Global unity based on melanin has never meant let's follow a religion that claims we're all just Africans in different countries. The U.S. Freedom Project created a presentation that details the reparations movement has always been lineage-based. It's not until Dr. Ron's modern Pan-African org show up that you get this conflation of Black Americans and Afro-immigrants. It's why Callie House's org fought for ex-slaves in the USA to get a pension. Queen Mother Audley Moore fought for slavery descendants to get reparations and had a separate organization dedicated to the interests of Afro-immigrants in the diaspora. Malcolm X gave a speech at Michigan State advocating for reparations for those that built the country. Dr. King called us descendants of slaves and said we were going to Washington to get our check since this government was propping up immigrants to our detriment. Randall Robinson, founder of Trans-Africa, advocated for the continent and Caribbean and wrote The Debt, what white America owes blacks, where he lays out a lineage-based claim. So when it sounds like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, while you're focused on the ABCs that you missed the nuance that would have taken you to ABCD, D is for the damages and debt. My name is Divine Prince. I'm the president of the U.S. Freedom Project.
That was
Brooklyn boy.
I don't know if y'all.
And I heard a Brooklyn songwriter say, every day I wake up, somebody got a problem with Hove. Who knew that somebody would...
That was kind of whack. Yeah, I'm going to just go ahead and call cap on everything that he said. I don't think any of the people that he stated were against immigration. That doesn't even seem right. That does not even seem right at all. I think he just made that up. That seems cap, if you ask me. What do y'all think about that? I call cap. I call 100% cap on that statement. I think that statement is an example of tomfoolery, chicanery, nonsense. I don't believe him. I do not believe that to be true in the slightest bit. Yeah, and they throw in Malcolm X, which is crazy because Malcolm X was a Pan-African nationalist. So, yeah, you said Coretta Scott King and MLK. You know, these dudes are Black MAGA. They just string it together. And freedmen are a joke. I mean, freedmen are a derivative of ADOS. You know, Lord Abba created the freedom movement. I think this Goofy was with that Real Dana. You know, she was kind of like the bench rider for the IBW movement. She didn't really do much. She was kind of an afterthought. And, you know, these are just grifters. Ultimately, these are just grifters. They're like right-wing grifters. Even in the midst of Trump and the Epstein files, you still see these idiots trying to blame Democrats. And it's just sad, ultimately. It's really sad, but let's just keep going. We'll keep going with this. Let's see who else it is. I actually got a lot of content. Shout out to Mr. K. Let's just keep piling on. Let's just see what this person has to say.
Next we have Brooke. Is Brooke here?
I didn't think y'all was gonna let me speak, okay? Reparations are not about redlining or gentrification. These are symptoms. The root cause is slavery. The harm to freedmen in New York City began with chattel slavery and wounds that remain open. Let's be clear. Puerto Ricans were enslaved by Spain. Jewish people were persecuted by Germany, and Caribbean nations were colonized by various European powers. But only Black Americans were enslaved on this soil by this government, and for centuries it was enshrined in law. Today, someone mentioned Haitians migrating after the revolution. What they didn't mention is that Black collaborators who sided with the French were being killed by the formerly enslaved in Haiti. Those who escaped fled with their white owners and lovers to Louisiana, where they owned plantations, enslaved people under a different legal system. That group owes reparations too. Yet we're constantly told to unify behind struggle narratives that erase ours. In 1951, Ricky Ricardo, a Hispanic man, was married to a white woman on national TV. Meanwhile, Black entertainers couldn't even use the same bathrooms as their white colleagues. In a 1963 article in the Negro Digest by Lennox Rachel, I think I got that name wrong. By Lennox, describes how West Indian immigrants were treated better and given more opportunities than foundational Black Americans. Some were even classified as white. He cited a Trinidadian who was given a home loan, then refused to rent to Black Americans, mirroring America's exclusion of the freedmen. The book Back of the Hiring Line by Roy Beck outlines how immigration surges over 200 years created a loose labor market, suppressing wages and blocking Black Americans from economic mobility. It highlights how immigration policies have widened the racial wealth gap. Even Frederick Douglass and Barbara Jordan supported tighter labor migration to protect Black Americans. Some were even classified as white. He cited a Trinidadian who was given a home loan, then refused to rent to Black Americans, mirroring America's exclusion of the freedmen. The book Back of the Hiring Line by Roy Beck outlines how immigration surges over 200 years created a loose labor market, suppressing wages and blocking Black Americans from economic mobility. It highlights how immigration policies have widened the racial wealth gap. Even Frederick Douglass and Barbara Jordan supported tighter labor migration to protect Black workers. Now we hear talk of co-ops and housing opportunities, but as recent testimonies have shown, Black New Yorkers have already been displaced. So who are these co-ops for? They not restoring what was taken from the freedmen. To this commission, if you were truly interested in studying history, please hold a hearing presentation on how immigration has harmed foundational Black Americans. Too often, other groups benefit from our struggle, then move on while we remain stuck. I've watched y'all nonprofits spin y'all heels, reports.
Next, we have Brooke. Is Brooke here?
Yeah, that was a bunch of crazy. I was trying to find Roy Beck, Desi Arnaz. I mean, to me, I've heard that name before, and like I want to say that it's one of these conservative like grifters. Like I want to say that it's one of them, but like I don't know for sure. But just right off the bat, I'm just gonna take that. I'm gonna take that as cap. I'm gonna just take that as cap. Because I don't believe, and it's funny how she was trying to put FBA and freedmen on the same level when freedmen don't even rock with FBA like that. Freedmen don't ever rock with FBA like that. So you know that these grifters just be pulling shit out of their ass. Actually, this is gonna be one of the sources that, wait, what the heck? What is going on? Wait, this is weird. It's not letting me. It's going to be one of the sources that if I could get it open. Oh, shit. That Mr. K sent me. Let me add it again, actually. I thought that was funny, though. Actually, I thought that was pretty funny. Alright. This is going to be Mr. Abiola, who was one of the famous Nigerian politicians who actually played a role in creating the reparations movement, full reparations. So, yeah. Shout out to everybody in the building. You got some Mississippi in the building. Your brother Magi's from Mississippi. Shout out to Mississippi. I got into some heat over Mississippi because I basically said that, the poor, the bad outcomes for healthcare and education in Mississippi are the reason why so many FBAs come from the South. And ultimately, you probably could chalk that up to there being a higher density of black people in the South. So, like, maybe there isn't as much of a correlation, but a lot of people were butthurt about that. But, I know Magi's been supporting me for quite some time. And I got a lot of supporters from the South, from the dirty South. I myself, even though you can't tell from my accent, I'm actually from the South. I was born in the South. But... anyway, like, this is just some stuff that Mr. K wanted me to review. I know he's in the UK, so he probably isn't getting this live. But if he is, shout out to Mr. K. If you are in the bushes somewhere. I'm trying to find yeah, that was a good speech. Wait, was that no, that couldn't be the same one. I thought that was like, shout out to the Nubiologist. I wonder if this is, yeah, I don't know if I want to play that. This was a funny video. No, this was in Oakland. This actually happened in Oakland. I'm gonna play this video. This is hilarious. This video is hilarious. By the way, if you are not a member and you would like for me to make a specific video for you, you can hit me on the Cash App and I'll do that. A lot of the videos I'm doing are on a request basis by my members, but if you are not a member and you hit the Cash App and you let me know who you are, I could create a video for you. Very, very easily done. But yeah, I don't even know if this is the video I'm looking at, but like this was hilarious when Tariq Nasheed came to Oakland. This was hilarious. He called him an agent. It's Secure the Tribe. You called him an agent. Yeah, I thought that. Let's run it back. Look at this. The green. The Secure the Tribe. Oh my God. This is so good. He was so scared. He said, "You an agent." You pointed his finger in his face. Look at that. You pointed it right in his face. Oakland knows what time it is, man. The Bay don't play, man. Oakland knows what time it is. Woo! He got cooked in Oakland. He got cooked out here. That was classic. I always go back to that video every once in a while. That was classic. Oh, very good laugh. It's worth it. Let's see what else I got. O'Shea. Yeah, I'm gonna need to do some content with respect to O'Shea. I'm looking at some of my requests. I got a big request log here. I can only get to so much. Actually, let's watch Chief X. Let's get into Chief X. I think this might actually be fun. Let's see if we can watch Chief X and Ngozi in real time. Let's get this popping. Because apparently they hated against Marcus Garvey. So let's watch it in real time. Again, this is all fair use. This is all fair use. What do we got here? We got a 2-hour long video. Wow. Hey, show some love if y'all want me to go. This is 2 hours. Show some love if y'all want me to review this Chief X video. This is all part of the request gang. And I might as well do this live. We've been on for about a little over an hour. You got some time. So, I mean, this is Chief X going against Marcus Garvey. Do y'all want to see this? Y'all want to see this? Show a little bit of love if you want to see this. If not, I may have to do this at some other time. So a little something. I'm gonna turn up the musica. Yeah. It's all performative. If not, I may just look at a few parts. Let's just see what he's on. Nobody talked about this, nor the fact that FBA hasn't said. Yeah, I mean, FBA hasn't even touched it. Like, FBA hasn't touched it. Let's see. Fair use. This is all fair use. Fair use. Let's skim through this little boy.
Just click down.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go do this thing.
I don't. Okay to kill some goddamn body because they touched to push you. Can you imagine somebody bumping somebody in a club and they talking shit and all of a sudden you stab it and you kill? You'd have a murder fest all over America. Stand your ground really don't relate to this incident because it wasn't no deadly force attack. If it's a deadly,
I don't know what they're talking about. Let's
donate. If he was of another race, you would say that motherfucker's wrong. If a Mexican kid stabbed another Mexican kid, every black folk would say they are wrong for that.
Yeah, that's true, Naps. It's too late to kick out 19 Keys. You know, it's way too late. It's way too late. If y'all like what y'all seeing, you know, hit that subscribe button. Give me some support. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. I'm gonna just try to find the spot where you're talking about Garvey. I wish he gave me a timestamp.
His office premeditated. If he's saying touch me and see what happened, he came in with a knife, touch me and see what happened attitude, and then he touched.
Okay.
Even though sometimes people may think that, but if you in here listening, I want to shout you out. I just want to say that out loud, you know. Marcus Garvey.
Let's go.
His organization, I think a lot of the African Americans don't really understand Marcus Garvey, because when people get absorbed in pan-Africanism, they tend to get absorbed in the idea of just being black and just sticking together as black people. And
it's just first of all, like, I think that, I don't know if y'all would agree with this, but like active pan-Africanists, or like people who consider themselves like part of pan-African organizations, are a minority of the population. Most black Americans don't really know much about Marcus Garvey or the UNIA ACO at all. So like, let me just let it run. This is all fair use.
In the older days, between the 80s, 60s, and 70s, and even in the 1940s and 30s. And I think they don't really understand what Marcus Garvey movement, the UNIA was about when he created in 1914 in Jamaica, and what was his real intentions or agenda when he had created this organization. So a lot of black people, they don't do a lot of research in America to know what's the standard of Pan-Africanism, or what his idea of Pan-Africanism really was. That's why the Pan-Africanism idea that we had morphed into all types of things. At first, it was all about Africa. Then it went into, Hebrew Israelites. Then it went into...
Wow, that is a gigantic jump. That is it seemed like he was talking loosely about the conscious community, but he conflated Pan-Africanism in there. I don't think that's accurate. at all. Like, what he said, Pan-Africanism was about Africa alone, when the UNIA was an international organization. It's actually the white media who said it was only about back to Africa. Yeah, so there's a lot there. Like, jumping from Pan-Africanism to Hebrew Israelite is pretty crazy. That's crazy work, but let's keep going.
Nuwapianism, and then it went into the pollution of taking people's identity and making everybody black, and then pushing yourself away from Africa, right? So when you really study
Pan-Africanism?
Study him and W.D. Du Bois, and you study the NAACP.
How is that? Whoa! How is that Pan-Africanism? Is he going to explain that? Let's see. Let's see if he explains. Let me put it faster. Let me put this a little faster.
Marcus Garvey had his own personal agenda. He got involved in money laundering and different things, and people know that history.
Fuck.
But when
God damn it. Okay, let's just. I'm gonna pause it multiple times just to debunk this nonsense. But let's keep going. First of all, it was an agent operative. The U.S. government admitted this. But let's just keep going.
You start studying NAACP, what we had already in America, the Africans in North America, African Americans, we were more about integration, getting education, getting absorbed into society, and not just putting the idea of race first, because race first is not an ultimate reality, especially when the race that we represent globally.
He's saying integration was the mainstream idea? No, it wasn't. Why did you have most organizations in the 19th century name themselves African? That's not true. And even in the sense of Booker T. Washington was a covert, like if you read Dr. Tyreen Wright's book, he was a covert African nationalist. So he promoted integrationalism publicly so that white people wouldn't be threatened by Tuskegee. And then he funded militants underground. That was Booker T. Washington. So the idea that integrationalism was mainstream, no, it actually wasn't. I mean, if you read Sterling Stuckey's work, a lot of Africans who were liberated in the 1860s wanted to return to Africa. And this is why, in some instances, the American Colonization Society was able to get progress. You had Chief Alfred Sam, who was from Ghana, or what was called the Gold Coast, and he was organizing different groups of African Americans to repatriate. So, No. I mean, Martin Delaney, who's a black American leader, he literally created the term Africa for Africans. So just a basic knowledge of American history will be able to debunk this. But let's keep going.
Isn't together collectively. Never was. That's why a lot of us is in the situation that we are in. America's only 248 years old. And when you know that America is 248 years old, and you live in a multicultural society like America that is predominantly white, and African Americans make up 14%, I think it's 46 million of us, it's impossible for us to be banded collectively to say, hey, we want to be just one thing, there's one black thing, there's one government. Integration is what you have to...
And I think that's a conflation. I mean, first of all, that's not really... I mean, New Africa maybe is certain streams of thought, but there's a conflation here between uniformity and unity. Like the United States are like California is different than Mississippi. Nevada is different than New York. Nebraska is different than Indiana. Florida is not the same as Montana. But the states are united by a constitutional convention and just different attributes and elements, you know, common origin, etc., etc. So the idea that you have to be uniform to be united goes against the United States itself, as well as the European Union, the African Union, different, you know, geopolitical bodies that we can see in the world today. But these individuals who are against unity, or they're against black solidarity and development, always use this lame talking point, and it's actually very, very lame. Like a family can be united without all of the members of the family being exactly the same. And the same thing is the case within geopolitics. Let's continue.
To do in this world, especially a society that's driven by capitalism and a new world market. That's
also, notice how like Chief X is he on the phone actually?
Numbers.
Yeah, he's on the phone. He's not even paying attention. But he would agree with all this. And Unbiased Ron is an FBA, so of course he's going to agree.
Be like, okay, because in Africa, there is no such thing as pan-Africanism. So the idea of pan-Africanism is beautiful as an idea, but it's not a reality.
In Africa, there's no, okay, the AES isn't Pan-African, even though they openly state that they're Pan-Africanist. And they openly, you know, they celebrate Garvey, they celebrate Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, they celebrate Kwame Nkrumah. So the AES isn't Pan-Africanist. And even beyond the AES, you know, the African Union fact book literally celebrates Chancellor Williams, Sheikh Anta Diop, Theophilo Benga, right? You have the Museum of Black Civilizations in Dakar. I mean, I could just go on and on and on. That statement is just dumb. That's like saying that there's no black people in Africa. It's just an idiotic statement, ultimately. I don't want to be pausing this every 2 seconds. Y'all got to show me some love somewhere. Y'all got to show me some love. This is my, you know.
Reality. The government, what benefits me in this country wouldn't benefit me if I go live in Nigeria or if I talk about staying in Nigeria, Ghana, or Sierra Leone. We have our own governments, we have our own things going on, and it's driven by two different systems. So when you study W.D. Du Bois and you study Ida B. Wells when they created, when they had the NAACP.
As if the Naira isn't in the international monetary system, as if the United States doesn't trade with Nigeria, as if there's not diplomatic policy between the two nations, especially as it relates to those who want to be educated in the United States universities, as if AFRICOM isn't present in West Africa, as if the United States didn't just bomb Nigeria on Christmas, as if there are not U.S. troops in Nigeria today and in a lot of these West African countries. I mean, I know Ngozi's, I think his mother is from Nigeria, but again, that statement is just ignorant. That's like a severely ignorant statement to make, especially in the globalized state of the economy in 2026. It's just the height of ignorance.
The standards that they had over here in that setting was much more better when you understand education, integration, in a multicultural society that was in, even though we were rejected in the earlier phases of North America. And in some cases, some people may still look at it. But it makes better sense to be in an institution when it's not fully you, and also to force yourself to be put or pour yourself in a collective based off race wouldn't make sense. Now, I'm not saying, you know, Marcus Garvey's idea of pan-Africanism.
I mean, I know Ngozi's a Muslim, so he wants to, and that's fine. I mean, he surely wants to be united with the Muslim world. But to say to pull yourself together as a race is bad. But look, when Jews pull themselves together by a group, not all Jews are the same, but they have a common origin, common bond, common religion, and they're able to be the largest lobbying group in the United States for the Republican and Democratic Party, despite not even representing 5% of the U.S. population. They have an incredible amount of power. And you see other groups like Hindu Americans and, various Chinese Americans, building power and building influence. White Americans, the institution of white supremacy or the institution of white hegemony in this majority white country is white people banding together against all others. And then even if you separate that from race, if you want to talk about feminism, women banding together, if you're going to say that we can't band together because of a racial categorization, then we shouldn't be able to do it because of a sexual categorization or a monetary categorization or a, social class and occupational categorization. And that's obviously not true, because you see, professional advocacy groups, professional organizations that unite together, lawyers coming together, doctors coming together, black lawyers, black doctors, black engineers, feminists coming together, Republicans and Democrats coming together based upon a unification of their political ideals. So to say that black people can't come together with respect to solving racial problems is to be ignorant about the history of America. It's to be ignorant about the history of the black world. And I mean, right off the bat, like every statement that is made is just the height of ignorance. And I can't even get into the actual video or the actual statement, because it just keeps coming up with just a bunch of these erroneous statements. So, I don't know. What do y'all think? He must think he's white. Yeah, I don't know if I should keep going. I may have to do this separately. It's an easy make though. What do y'all think? Yeah, I may have to skip him. I'm going to skip him. It's just everything he said was bullshit, for the lack of a better term. Where are we at? Where are we at? Everything he said.
Wasn't a beautiful idea, but it's not a reality, and it'll never work. I mean, people in Ghana don't care about what people in Nigeria is doing.
All right. Now they're slowly starting to come around and understand what I meant, shit like that, right? So
Went over there, and it was strike already.
With Kwame Nkrumah, right? And I say this all the time, right? 6 years ago, I made a video, and people got pissed off at me and they got their panties all in a bunch because I said pan-Africanism died. Now they're slowly starting to come around and understand what I meant, shit like that, right? So
if pan-Africanism is dead, people say that all the time. Why are they still talking about it if it's dead? Why are y'all talking about pan-Africanism if it's dead? It's obviously okay, Christianity is dead, right? If Christianity was dead, there would be no Christians, but there's 2 billion Christians in the world right now. 2 billion people in the world identify with Christianity. So saying Christianity is dead is false because there's living adherents. So, because I'm trying to help these dudes out, I don't think that they're familiar with grammar. If you said Pan-Africanism has been neutralized or Pan-Africanism is not effective, that's a little better. But saying it's dead as if there are no living adherents is just stupid. It's just a dumb thing to say. Because again, they continue to talk about Pan-Africanism, so it's just idiotic.
Kenya. And I was making this men and go Street Sufi was talking. I said, Kenya don't give a fuck about Jamaica. Nigeria don't give a shit about Morocco.
How the fuck do you... Okay. I don't even have to look into this. I guarantee you that Kenya and Jamaica have a bilateral trade agreement. I guarantee you that there's trade. Matter of fact, I'm gonna look it up right now. I'm gonna look it up right now as we speak. I'm gonna look it up. Kenya, Jamaica relations, just to show y'all how easy it is to Google this. Yeah, there's even a Wikipedia page about this. There's even a Wikipedia page about this. Okay. Let me go back to actually, like, I can't believe I didn't think of this. Kenyatta was literally a follower of Marcus Garvey. The first president of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta, was a pan-Africanist and a follower of Marcus Garvey. So right off the bat, I can't believe I didn't think of that off the top of my head. But as I was thinking, I was like, Kenyatta, like, what are these idiots talking about? Kenya literally has RBG in their flag as a sign of respect for the UNIA. So I'm gonna play this video. I'm gonna play this this audio for y'all to see. So this is gonna be from the Kenya state visit to Jamaica that occurred recently. I mean, it's just easy to debunk these idiots. This is just a Google search away. We used to talk about income tax. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
Decades before Kenyan independence in December 1963, the words of Jamaican Marcus Garvey were being carried throughout the country. From the riverbanks of Kisumu to the forests of Nairobi, nationalists devoted themselves to the influential teachings of Garvey and other voices in the pan-Africanism movement. This would later prove crucial in the campaign for independence from Britain. Fast forward nearly a century later, and Jamaica and Kenya are looking to deeper bilateral relations and cooperation even further. President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, visited the island on Monday to engage in discussions with Prime Minister Andrew Holness during a 3-day state visit.
Being here is both a moment of personal joy, but also one that seeks to re-establish those old links for the betterment of the peoples of our two countries, and in order to increase and deepen all those bonds of friendship that were established those many years ago.
Among the areas being explored for continued and new cooperation are agriculture and tourism.
Our two foreign ministers have just now signed a framework agreement on cooperation, which creates a structured mechanism for regular dialogue to pursue meaningful and defined cooperation activities in areas such as trade, agriculture, sports, culture, education, tourism, and health.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness. President Kenyatta highlights that in the areas of athletics, both countries have much to share.
Kenya and Jamaica are global powerhouses. Our Kenyan athletes excel in the long and middle distance races, while Jamaican athletes excel in the short distance races. There is definitely room for us to partner here.
Jamaica also signed 3 memoranda of understanding for cooperation in the fields of sports, culture and heritage, political consultations, as well as tourism. While here, the Kenyan delegation were also afforded the opportunity to experience Jamaican culture with its rich African retentions. On Independence Day, President Kenyatta paid respect to national hero Marcus Mosiah Garvey by laying a floral tribute at his shrine at the National Heroes Park. Garvey had a significant influence on President Kenyatta's father, Jomo Kenyatta, the first prime minister and the first president of the African nation. The president and his wife, Margaret, were also special guests at this year's Jamaica 57 Independence Grand Gala. This year's show was held under the theme One Nation, One People, with strong Afrocentric themes brought out in the performances.
When I look around, it just shows you that as much as we are oceans apart, we are one people. In many ways, very similar. I feel very much at home.
The event also saw the launch of the local observance of the United Nations Decade for People of African Descent.
It is my honor and privilege on behalf of the African continent to join my friend and brother in declaring Jamaica's commemoration of the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent. Lord.
First Lady of Kenya, Margaret Kenyatta, is a global leader in her own right on issues of women's rights and the education of girls. On August 5, she visited the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation, where she lauded the young mothers for their resilience and determination to take advantage of a second chance at education.
I encourage all of you here to make the most of this opportunity to nurture your talent and reach for the stars. Strive for excellence in your academic work and in developing your characters so that you will become the women that you are meant to be.
Approximately 100 young mothers gathered to listen to the First Lady, who also related the stories of Kenyan girls in the search for education and upliftment. Mrs. Kenyatta also visited the National Gallery of Jamaica, where she interacted with artists whose work formed part of this year's summer exhibition. The Kenyan delegation left the island on Wednesday after a full itinerary of cultural and state activities. Before leaving, President Kenyatta extended an invitation to Prime Minister Andrew Holness to visit the African Republic during the meeting of the ACP group of states later this year. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the state visit has propelled relations between both countries to unprecedented heights as the two nations work towards achieving peace and prosperity for the benefit of its peoples.
So that literally took one Google search. What do y'all think? I think that, look, if I keep on playing them, it's just gonna be more ignorance. You know, if there wasn't pan-Africanism, you wouldn't have any of these modern African states. You know what I'm saying? So I don't even think it's that big of a deal. I don't think it's that serious, right? So I'm gonna just leave them to the side. Because it's not worth it. It's too ignorant. 2 hours of ignorance. What else do we have here? Other stuff here. We can go back to these freedmen idiots. Foundational Black Americans. Brooke Melanin. It's Brooke. I don't know if y'all heard of this lady. That's who she is.
By William Lawrence Katz.
God damn. Man, Mr. K be sending me hella long videos. I don't know about this. I don't know about this one. This one's a little long. Yeah, I don't know about this one, to be honest. What do you say? That video is just one of the old dudes talking nonsense.
Like I said, this delineation movement has really shaken up.
Oh, that's the one at that hearing. She was at that hearing. I feel like one of these dudes I've responded to before.
World. And that's just the power of, we got people falling off their square. We got people snitching on each other. We got folks falling off their square. Yeah, they got to be like from the Northeast. They're from New York. They probably have Caribbean ancestry, but they don't know it. Falling off their square. Out each other. We got the family getting down and talking with each other. We give people to...
Shout out to everybody from the Northeast. If you don't know, I like to make fun of accents. I like to. I don't have every accent perfectly, but I think it's interesting to hear brothers and sisters from different places.
To pull back the layers and, questioning some things that they may have.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. How you doing? Where are you from? Where are you going? Thank you, ma'am. You? Where are you going? Thank you. You're cool. Where are you from? Where are you going? You? Where you going? Where you going? New York? New York? Where you from? Where you going? Thank you, sir. You? Where you going? Thank you. You?
So these are just a bunch of people from Senegal who I believe they are crossing the border and trying to get to New York. You know, this is something that we've been known to happen for a very, very long time. And the FBAs of the world, they would take the side of Donald Trump in deporting and brutalizing these people. You know, they don't understand. You know, one person on my X said, hey, this is genetic reinforcements. The FBA shouldn't be pissed off about this. And I tend to agree with that sentiment. That they shouldn't have that perspective. Let's keep playing.
You? New York. You? Like your ring. What's this? It's a nice ring. Where are you from? Senegal. Where are you going?
That's Cap. I seen all of them on Canal Street selling shades and watches today.
I'm just saying, we getting overrun. This is insane.
I think it's like, I don't even think 1% of the Senegalese population is in the U.S. They're talking about being overrun like that.
They are working in direct opposition to what we are fighting for politically here.
And they
Who are these people? What's their background? Those your next Uber drivers, your next DoorDash delivery drivers. You be careful when you're ordering stuff. Any thoughts on
Where was that shooter from? The Pew Pure. Sorry, the Pew Pure. Where was that Pew Pure from? That wasn't even fighting for Senegal.
People move into Russia who have special expertise that they're looking for. And this comment says Burkina Faso definitely going. And 2 years ago, Burkina Faso started it. I can't remember what it was called. Damn it. But Burkina Faso started a program to bring back Black and African people. They had.
Which one is Biggie's friend? I don't know, y'all. This is kind of boring. These are low rank grifters. This is kind of boring. I don't know if I want to keep reviewing this. I need something short though. I need something that's more like quick on the request. If you give me a whole live, like give me some timestamps because it could get pretty monotonous. All right, this is a 7-minute video. Let's see what it's got.
You mentioned
Fair use.
in that you had reached out to a number of organizations for allyship, for anything, any kind of support from the the New York diaspora, and how was that, sir?
I would say, again, like I told y'all guys, I'm coming from the space of being a Pan-African. You grew up in New York, especially during that era. You know,
Cap. I'm call Cap on that. Pan-African. Do you think he was part of a legitimate organization? Doubt it. I highly doubt it. And even if he was probably going through the motions and not taking it seriously. But let's continue. They always make, I used to be a Pan-African. They always make this lame claim.
You saw the medallions everywhere on the street corners. You saw the pics with the black fist. I like to say, I'm from that era where we saw all the Simpson T-shirts where they had dreads and they were black. Even the Looney Tunes, they had black Looney Tunes, right? The shirts. And so all we understood was that if you was black, you was our sister and you was our brother. And so when it came time to advocate in this space, call me naive, and I would admit that I was, I never imagined that I was going to get into this fight and my biggest opposition was going to come from the diaspora and others that look like me and others that are me. I thought immediately, how am I going to have to fight? How am I going to fight this white devil? We've seen his tools and his tricks of the trade throughout history. I was preparing myself to fight the white supremacists and have to physically, possibly, and mentally outsmart this devil. And that I haven't even gotten to that point yet. We haven't gotten to that point yet. If y'all old school and y'all played the Super Mario Brothers games, we have not gotten to the real castle. My princess is still in another castle. I'm beating the underlings. We haven't gotten even to the big show yet. And so I'm saying that to say I was highly disappointed at the opposition. Highly disappointed at where the opposition was coming from. And so I reached out to a number of organizations in the early days of this because one of the things that we were told explicitly and directly when we attempted to explain to the legislators, hey, there's a way to get reparations right. Matter of fact, there's a way to get policies right that we're talking about we need, whether we talk about housing or jobs or things above and beyond DEI and affirmative action. There's a way to do it. We have a way.
Wait, don't go there yet. I didn't get there yet. Whoa, don't get there.
Get it back. So let me just fix. So
But I want to know specifically.
Yes.
The organizations that you reached out to.
Yes. So, and I brought that up, but let me just say what I was going to say, but not the whole kit and caboodle.
Okay.
So what I was saying is that when we advocated and told them, hey, there's a way for us to get the policies that we need and we deserve, we were told explicitly and directly that the Afro-Caribbean politicians would not support it, meaning reparations, unless they and their constituents were allowed to get a piece. And something just didn't vibe with.
I just call cap on that. So he's saying that Afro-Caribbeans wanted lineage reparations specifically for Caribbeans in New York or New York. I don't think that's true. I think that's cap. What do y'all think? I think that's cap. It just seems like cap to me.
Me about that. I really believed that they were lying, right? I was like, why would they try to lie? Why would they try to pit us against this other group? And so I said, you know what? Let me reach out on my own. Even if they're hostile, even if they say no or whatever, let's just find out who's who. If you're telling me this is the reality, I want to find out for myself. And so here is you told me to compile a list earlier today. I have that list.
Yes, I did.
Yes. I couldn't go right now I have a list of the top 15. So I'll do that.
15 is, so I want you to understand. I want everybody to understand. You said the top 15, which means you reached out to a lot more than 15. But this is just all you brought today. So how many in total? Just a range, you don't have to give me an exact number, but like just a range of how many organizations. And you've already let us know that you are the only one for the freedmen. So how many Black organizations did you reach out to?
I want to say we're probably in the realm of about 50. So 50. What was so surprising about it is that, again, in this space, in the beginning, we weren't being told that we were xenophobic yet, right? But after we pushed, we were told that we were xenophobic. But in my mind, I'm like, are y'all insane? There's 50 organizations that I reached out to that don't fight for us at all, that we are not a part of, that we can't even join.
And what are those 15 organizations that you
Here go
got
the
there?
15 organizations. The Caribbean Equality Project. The Caribbean American Restaurant Association. The Caribbean American Chamber of Commerce. Caribbean. Caribbean American Bar Association, Caribbean American Center of New York, Caribbean Cultural Center.
So is he saying that like these Caribbean organizations rejected the freedmen? Because I know he's part of the freedmen organization that is derivative of ADOS. So maybe they saw that he was a grifter and a reactionary hate monger, and they said that they wanted nothing to do with it. I think that's more likely than them wanting lineage-based reparations specifically for Afro-Caribbeans in New York. That just doesn't seem like... Why? Why would they even do that? That's cap. I'm just calling cap on that.
African Diaspora Institute, the Barbados Cancer Association. I started getting desperate. I was going, let me just find anybody, because somebody got to say yes. Caribbean American Medical and Scientific Association, the African Services Committee, the Sauti Yetu Center for African Women and Families, the African Communities Together organization, Africa Center, African Refuge, and one of my favorites, Association des Sénégalais d'Amérique. None. Absolutely none. Zero. Return the email.
Yeah, restaurant association. Why would a restaurant association be involved in that? That's like so random. And they probably were like, yeah, we don't necessarily, think that you guys are legit. We don't really want anything to do with y'all. Like, but a restaurant association wouldn't be at the front of a reparations movement. That wouldn't happen.
And the email, which I still have, if we need to ever post that receipt, was specifically telling them, hey, I was told that you would not support reparations for American freedmen, for Foundation Black Americans, if you could not get a piece. I know they bugging. So can you reach out to me to tell me in what ways can we work together?
Yeah, it seemed like cap. That just seemed like 100%. 100% cap. They're just creating problems that don't exist. They're grifters, like the restaurant association. The restaurant association is probably like, yeah, I mean, but we're not really. They don't really do that. That's not really, They could maybe be on the side and offer some support emotionally, or offer support in terms of, hey, do you want a meal or something like that? But they're not fighting in the pan-Africanist movement. So again, like these idiots, they say, oh, I was a pan-African because you had a medallion or an Africa t-shirt. I was a pan-African. It's just like, these idiots are dumb. Like, it's just so lame. They reduce being pan-Africanism to like petty cultural symbolism. So yeah, they're lame ultimately. Yeah, they're lame as hell. You see what this is about. If this isn't too long, I might get into it.
Hello and welcome to African Elements. I'm Darius Spearman. In this episode, what is Black Studies, also referred to as Africana Studies? We'll look at the
fair use. I'm gonna play this video, give some commentary, and then end the show.
Also,
hope y'all enjoy.
Faced by scholars,
shout out to y'all.
Black Studies in higher education. All that coming up next.
Who supported Cash App and through Super Chats. But this will be the last video that we review before closing the show. And let me tell you why this is important.
Black Studies,
because a lot of these FBAs try to be like, oh, the Pan-Africans are colonizing Black Studies. They're making Black Studies about Africa and not FBA. But this is going to go into how Pan-Africanists actually created Black Studies. So let's just play it.
It spans across disciplines, encompassing the social sciences such as history, sociology, psychology, and political science, as well as the humanities, including music, art, literature, and religious studies. Different academic institutions may use different terms to describe it depending upon their particular focus. But whether it goes by the name Black Studies, African American Studies, or Africana Studies, the discipline is generally rooted in a radical movement for fundamental education reform. No matter what one may call it, the discipline of Black Studies is a direct challenge to the European-centered framework and its justification of the subjugation, enslavement, and colonization of African people and their descendants throughout the world. The reframing of the world through a European lens has confronted people of African descent, and even people on the African continent, with an identity crisis, as the continent has been transformed by colonization, and Black people have been stripped of their cultural heritage.
It froze on my screen.
Black Studies, then, has become a way of...
I don't know if it froze for y'all, but if it froze, do y'all still see the screen moving? Because it froze on my screen. Let me know if y'all still see it moving, even before I paused it. I mean, I could easily just play it and allow the audio to come through if y'all can still hear the audio. If not, I'm gonna just keep playing. But let me know if you can't hear it. I'm gonna keep it playing though.
Reshaping and reframing the experience of Black people, as opposed to having their experience, as well as their very identities, reframed and viewed through the lens of their colonial oppressors. The comments of the well-known 18th century philosopher David Hume are fairly typical as an example of how Africa and its people were framed in the eyes of the European colonizers. As a footnote in his essay and treatises, written in 1768, he writes, "I'm apt to suspect the Negroes to be naturally inferior to the white. There never was a civilized nation of any other complexion than white, nor even any individual eminent either in action or speculation. No ingenious manufactures amongst them, no arts, no sciences." The need to reclaim one's heritage in the face of such a disparaging mainstream narrative is at the very core of the development of Black Studies as an academic discipline. What has been the impact of the reframing of African identity through European eyes? Malcolm X explains.
Why should the Black man in America concern himself, since he's been away from the African continent for 400 years, 300 or 400 years? Why should we concern ourselves? What impact does what happened to them have upon us? Number one, first you have to realize that up until 1959, Africa was dominated by the colonial powers, and by the colonial powers of Europe having complete control over Africa, they projected the image of Africa negatively. They projected Africa always in a negative light. Jungles, savages, cannibals, nothing civilized. And well, then naturally, it was so negative until it was negative to you and me. And you and I began to hate it. We didn't want anybody to tell us anything about Africa, and much less call us an African. And in hating Africa and hating the African, we ended up even hating ourselves without even realizing it. Because you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. You can't hate your origin and not end up hating yourself. You can't hate Africa and not hate yourself. And you show me one of these people over here who have been thoroughly brainwashed, who has a negative attitude toward Africa, and I'll show you one that has a negative attitude toward himself. You can't have a negative attitude toward yourself, a positive attitude toward yourself, and a negative attitude toward Africa at the same time. To the same degree that your attitude, that your understanding of, an attitude toward Africa becomes positive, you'll find that your understanding of and your attitude toward yourself will also become positive. And this is what the white man knows.
As we can see, the critical issue here is the power to define. Since historically the Black experience has been defined through the European lens, at least over the past 400 or so years, Black Studies is largely an effort to reclaim and redefine the experience of persons of African descent. That's exactly the reason why naming is so important. The different departments that have sprung up throughout the country do vary in the terms that they use to describe themselves. Whether they go by the name Black Studies, Africana Studies, or African American Studies, the process of naming is very deliberate and carries a particular meaning for the individuals who undertook to establish the various academic departments. The different focus that each of these departments may have makes naming a matter of political control, which is a critical principle to self-determination and self-definition. African American Studies focuses on persons of African descent throughout the Americas, including North, Central, and South America, as well as the Caribbean, as well as countries like Newfoundland and Greenland. So the term African American makes African American Studies a more historically specific branch of the discipline that describes the experience of Africans in the Western Hemisphere with a relatively narrow lens. While there tends to be some focus on the continent of Africa, there's no specific focus on persons of African descent in Europe or Asia. The term Black Studies represents a more politicized vision of the discipline. As we'll see, the institutionalization of Black studies, that is, the formal establishment of Black studies within academic settings, came about largely as a result of what is known in the 1960s as the Black Power movement. Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam, in an attempt to reclaim their sense of self-definition, urged the so-called Negro to become Black. Black became redefined as a popular, positive affirmation of self. Black studies reflect the politicization of the discipline that is largely aimed at the discovery, dissemination of information pertaining to what Black people have undergone and achieved, and the use of education and knowledge to defend and vindicate the race against its detractors. This reframing was a symbolic victory for the masses of Black people, but it also carries with it certain problems and challenges, as we'll see later. Like Black studies, Africana studies is not limited to the experience of persons of African descent on the continent of Africa or the Western Hemisphere, but is much broader and focuses on the African diaspora as a whole. The African diaspora refers to the disbursement of persons of African descent throughout the globe. It's well known that persons of African descent had a presence in ancient Greece and Rome, as well as widespread contact between Africans and Asians via the Indian Ocean. There's some evidence to suggest that there was a pre-Columbian disbursement of Africans across the Atlantic well before 1492. The systematic and widespread dispersal of Africans throughout the globe, however, took place on a far more massive scale in the past 400 years as a result of the Atlantic slave trade and subsequent colonization of the continent of Africa. Africana studies focuses on the Pan-African links and experiences of persons of African descent, not only in the continent of Africa and in the Americas, but in places like England, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, as well as Russia and various parts of Europe and Asia. It does so, however, without the political context that you find in the Black Power movement. Aside from terminology, Black studies, African American studies, and Africana studies are similar in that they've come about largely in response to systemic misrepresentation of the experience of persons of African descent in such a way as to popularize the notion that they're inferior. It is in response to miseducation, which, as Malcolm X explains, has redirected the worldview of Black people in such a way as to prevent them from identifying with their true history, cultural self-awareness, and well-being, and diseducation, by which Black people have been deprived of access to education altogether. As such, a core value is an underlying social mission that requires the application of theory to methodology and the combination of knowledge to activism towards practical resolution of issues in the Black community. That's the reason why Black studies has always been historically so closely aligned with activism and social justice. Key developments in the establishment of Black studies include a period of renewed hope between 1945 and 1955. During that time, legal victories such as the Supreme Court's Brown versus Board of Education decision in 1954, which struck down segregation, gave Blacks a sense of optimism in terms of the direction the country was going. Additionally, the GI Bill allowed many African Americans who were returning from World War II as veterans to have most, if not all, of their college tuition paid for by the federal government. Within the first few years of its passage, the reality of a college education combined with growing desegregation of public institutions led to an unprecedented growth in the number of African American students. Along with the influx of African American students and the gradual breakdown of legal barriers, however, a number of other factors combined that encouraged the institutionalization of Black studies in higher education. Why would the power structure, which had been so resistant to curricular and structural change, now all of a sudden seem so much more open to change? The gains of the civil rights movement, that is, the desegregation of the armed forces and the Brown versus Board of Education decision, among many other efforts, combined with two other forces, civil unrest and the Cold War, that brought about a shift with regard to the stance that academia in general held toward the establishment of Black studies as a discipline. The period of civil rights also overlapped a period of militancy, unrest, sit-ins, and demands for acknowledgement and justice on college campuses, which increased between 1966 and 1968. In May 1967, students at Jackson State College in Mississippi fought with police for 2 nights. The National Guard was called, and 1 person was killed. On March 19, 1968, a sit-in at Howard University became the first building takeover on a college campus. By this time, the philosophy of the Black Power movement and Black nationalism were about as firmly entrenched in the Black community as the civil rights movement as a response to racism and systematic oppression. Uprisings in the Los Angeles community of Watts in 1965 and in Newark, New Jersey in 1967, as well as uprisings in cities nationwide in the wake of the assassinations of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King in 1965 and 1968, respectively, had the effect of reframing Black studies as a national security issue. Perhaps some systemic change would be necessary in order to prevent widespread unrest in what were formerly exclusively white institutions that were becoming increasingly desegregated. Another national security threat also loomed that forced, or at least encouraged academic institutions to consider implementing Black studies into their curricula. The period immediately following World War II through the 1980s ushered in the era of the Cold War. As most of Europe and much of Asia lay in shambles, the United States and Soviet Union emerged from the conflict as the world's two emerging superpowers, and as bitter rivals for one another. As the two superpowers competed on a global scale for strategic and economic dominance, the United States became increasingly concerned about supporting regimes friendly to its capitalistic interests in order to undercut its communist rival. At home, the United States became increasingly concerned, some might say paranoid, over the threat of communist infiltration from within the country. As a result, the efforts of the U.S. government agencies to systematically root out the communist threat from within took the form of the infamous McCarthy hearings of 1954 and the FBI counterintelligence programs intended to disrupt and destroy organizations it saw as subversive, such as the Black Panther Party. At the same time, implementing programs of Black studies in higher education was seen as a necessary concession in order to keep Black students from going communist. It's within that context that Merritt Community College in Oakland, California, established the first organized Black studies curriculum in the 1965-1966 academic school year. San Francisco State University approved the nation's first four-year curriculum in Black studies in 1967-1968 academic year. As a relatively new and developing discipline, Black studies faces many challenges, dilemmas, and paradoxes that scholars, students, and academics must grapple with. Among them, given that Black studies is both a response to and a means of addressing social inequality, how do we get around the fact that social inequality is largely a barrier between Black studies and those whose needs it's intended to address? How do we achieve an educational impact on a critical mass of people in the face of disproportionate access to higher education? What is or should be the relationship between Black people inside the universities and those who may never make it that far? How is it possible for Black studies departments to remain institutionalized in higher education and still preserve their own core set of values? What is the cost of integration, being seen as legitimate in the eyes of the establishment? Does institutionalization and mainstreaming of Black studies compromise a Black studies agenda, especially given that Black studies places an emphasis on solutions to group problems in a context of a social climate that values individual success as opposed to group liberation? What about gender? If Black studies was established as a means to address the disservice of Eurocentric male-dominated thought and social practice, patriarchal male dominance within Black studies must also be addressed if Black studies is not to fall victim to the same type of disservice. Patriarchal male dominance is part of the problem I've referenced earlier in terms of the political vision of Black studies and the Black Power movement. If Black studies and Black Power are a response to and remedy to Eurocentric notions of power, then how do we respond without simply becoming a mirror image of the oppressor? If the goal is to be equal with whites, does that mean adopting the same notions of power? Top-down, male-dominated? Or can we develop notions of power that are independent of Eurocentric and oppressive colonial models of power? What is a responsible Black studies research agenda? Who has the power to decide? Who sets the priorities and determines the means to carry them out? Lastly, Black studies programs were developed as a challenge to what remains a Western-dominated Eurocentric vision of higher education. Yet it is in these very institutions where Black studies resides. A problem with Black nationalism in general is that, given that it was established as a means to develop autonomy and self-determination, how is that possible, given that Black studies in higher education relies exclusively on allocations from established institutional budgets? Consider the case in 2008 of Karen Salazar, the Los Angeles school teacher who was fired for being too Afrocentric.
Protests in support of dismissed Los Angeles School District high school teacher Karen Salazar have increased this week. She's a second-year English teacher at Jordan High School in Watts. Last month, she was told her contract would be renewed because she was presenting a biased view, would not be renewed because she was presenting a biased view of the curriculum and indoctrinating her students with Afrocentrism. Her course material included board-approved texts like the writings of Malcolm X and Langston Hughes. Last week, a student took issue with the negative characterization of Salazar's teaching.
She encourages her students to continue on. She gives them the push. She doesn't give up on her students. She says, okay, you're struggling in my class, I will take time off. I will help you after school. Most teachers don't even do that. And the fact that she's teaching us about our culture and things that are relevant to us, that's what they are afraid of. They're scared of a teacher who does that. That involves critical thinking. They don't like students who question or to think critically. They just want students to absorb everything and then to regurgitate back to them.
Jordan High School officials refused to comment when we contacted them and said the issue was an internal matter relating to personnel, but the case of Karen Salazar is not unique. We turn now to another story that could have a chilling effect on education in Arizona public schools. A legislative panel in Arizona endorsed a proposal in April that would cut state funding for public schools whose courses denigrate American values and the teachings of Western civilization. The measure would also prohibit students of state-funded universities and community colleges from forming groups based on, in whole or in part, on the race of their members. Critics say the bill would essentially destroy the state's Mexican-American or Chicano studies programs, as well as student groups such as, the Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano de Aztlán or MECHA. Karen Salazar, tell us the latest.
Hi. I guess the latest, as you said, yes, my contract has been denied for renewal. So effective June 30th, I will be out of a contract from LAUSD. The latest would be that about 3 to 4 weeks ago, I received my official evaluation from the school, and it was actually a satisfactory evaluation. It was a positive evaluation. Unfortunately, they never gave me a copy of that evaluation, even though I signed it. So after, pressing the administration to give me a copy of that evaluation for weeks, and I had the union press them as well, this week I was given an evaluation. Unfortunately, it was not the evaluation that I signed. It was not the evaluation that I signed. It was actually a different evaluation, completely different form. My evaluative marks of satisfactory had now been turned into unsatisfactory.
And their major beef with you?
The major beef, originally they told me that the reason for not renewing my contract was that I was presenting a biased view of the curriculum. They later told district officials that I was indoctrinating students with Afrocentrism. Later they said that it was due to an over-teached position, too many English teachers at my school. Now the latest is they're saying that I'm not teaching state standards.
Karen Salazar, can you talk about the charge that your teachings were too Afrocentric? Talk about what you taught.
Sure. There was actually one lesson in particular that's been extremely controversial. I used a 3-page excerpt from the autobiography of Malcolm X, which is an LAUSD approved text. It's widely used around the country, in other countries as well. I used a 3-page excerpt, standards-based. They never denied that it was standards-based, but the administrator who observed
when you say standards-based, in LAUSD, Los Angeles United School District, but LA standards-based?
Standards-based for the California Content Standards for English Language Arts.
Go ahead.
So it was a standards-based lesson. The administrator who came and observed my class later wrote in an evaluation, this is a written evaluation that goes into my file, that I was brainwashing students and imposing extremist views on them based on this lesson. So that's one of the controversial lessons, I guess, that I am being accused of indoctrinating students with Afrocentrism with. I did have a mentor teacher observe the same exact lesson that same day, just coincidentally, because she is my mentor teacher. She comes in periodically to observe my lesson, and she took away something completely different from that lesson than what the administrator did.
How many times were you evaluated compared to other teachers?
Wow, this year alone, I've been evaluated at least 15 times. Comparatively, the average evaluations for teachers is between 1 and 3 times, so, it's substantially more.
Do you have any recourse to reverse your dismissal?
At this point, we are working, students are organizing with the union. We're working with the Association of Raza Educators. We're working to pressure the district to review this decision, both at the school board level and district official level.
Today is graduation?
Today is graduation, yes.
Will you be there?
Yes, I will.
Is it possible to challenge a Western-style curriculum with its emphasis on tests, quizzes, and individual achievement with an alternative African-centered approach that favors group discussion and peer-to-peer mentoring? Is it possible to put forward that challenge from within the very Westernized institutional settings in which Black studies reside? These are the challenges that Black studies and this program, African Elements, will be addressing. That does it for this show. Thank you for joining me, and be sure to check in with me next time for a look at the significance of Black studies. Is Black studies relevant only to Black students? What does Black studies have to offer?
Yeah, so that's going to be it for this video. Shout out to everybody in the building. Shout out to all the supporters. I'm going to try to do this again before the end of the week. And with that, I hope to catch y'all on the next one. Peace.